Oh, yes. This is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. And today's show, sponsored by Cheshire Impact, on a mission to help people maximize their use of Pardot and Salesforce. CheshireImpact.com. Bam. And we're live. We are live. And I am so excited to introduce you to today's guest. He is a sage. He's been in marketing for 35 plus years, an award-winning copywriter, understanding the buyer. He's a blogger, a speaker, founder, the owner, the curator of Cargill Creative. He's a social media marketer. And I got to tell you, my social game is awesome, but his is on point. So we're going to learn a lot about that from him. He's also the president of the Boston chapter of the AMA, American Marketing Association. He is also known by many people, competitors and friends alike, as the Beast. Ran 14 miles 2 days ago, or a few days ago. My friend and crazy marketer, Bob Cargill. How are you, sir?
Casey, I'm doing very, very well. Only my old friends from back in the day know my nickname, the Beast. That's pretty funny. You've now
everyone knows your nickname, the Beast.
You've let the cat out of the bag.
I did. That's what I'm going to call you from now on, too.
Love that. You got it.
Well, I'm so glad you're here, and because we're going to talk about all sorts of things today, and for sure it's about social. Your point, you're on. Your social is so good, I can't even describe it, and I want to learn from you about that. I also want to learn from you about how that bumps into marketing automation and just the idea of automation, and do we lose our souls in that? And I also want to hear, you've been in marketing for such a long time. You were like around in the Mad Men days, so I want to hear about stories of how it's evolved since that. So, start us off. Have you heard any kind of crazy strategies, any myths you just want to smash? And here you go, actually. I have a helper. This is Thor's hammer. Just receive Thor's hammer. There you go. Okay, so take Thor's hammer and smash away any kind of like bogus strategy you've seen, any kind of misconception we might have in the marketing world.
Boom. Technology. So Casey, great question.
Yeah.
I believe strongly in technology. I've embraced social media very early on. 2004, I started my blog, and I love digital marketing. I love all the technologies that are at our disposal. But what I don't want us to forget in the marketing industry is the human side, the human element, the human touch. There's a book by Patrick Lencioni called The 4 Obsessions of an Extraordinary Executive. It has nothing to do with marketing or social per se, but his obsessions are build organizational clarity and over communicate. And towards the end, he says, I'm not stating these exactly, but towards the end, he says, it's the human factor that you still have to human process. If you don't have that, an appropriate and effective human process around everything, all the technology in the world is wasted, is futile. So I take that lesson very loosely and say, with social, with digital marketing, the people behind the technology are critical, and also the face on the brand. So, who is representing you and who is behind the scenes. If you don't have the right people in place, all the technology in the world, it doesn't matter.
You'll break that down for us, because that makes a lot of sense. What are the different areas we can mess that up? I hear you. I mean, automation just automates more of whatever you have. It just like it amplifies. So if you haven't figured out people, it's going to just let everyone know that much more how much you haven't figured it out. So how are you seeing people mess this up?
Well, so without naming names or
this is the Hardcore Marketing Show.
I have a lot of experience, as you almost embarrassingly so, 35 plus years. Of course, digital marketing has only been around, half of those years, let's say. But I have absolutely seen, and again, I don't know if Patrick Lencioni would agree with how I'm paraphrasing his 4 obsessions, but as he says, reinforce organizational clarity through human systems. I would say reinforce your technology and how you're using it, how you're using this marketing automation through building the right teams, having the right people in place. That's critical. So, and those people, to me, need to have had some experience in marketing already and have to know the fundamentals. So technology alone is not enough.
Got it. I think that's the challenge too. Right now, we've got, marketing automation, right? I'm writing a book on automation, but you can lose yourself in that, right? You can forget all the ones and zeros on that ROI report are actually people.
Casey, you're the left brain, say, and I'm the right brain. You're, automation to me.
Does that mean I'm like the happy one, or I'm the logical one? Which one
You're
am I?
you are logical.
Okay,
I'm the happy one. I'm out there, out there in
I want
space.
I want your side.
They do say my side is the fun side, but honestly, my side sometimes is difficult to prove because right brain is creative, left brain is analytical. So the automation that's left, I need you. I need the left
Got
side
it.
because I'm over there on the right, and that's the human side. The more in touch with the human element, those human systems that I was saying Patrick Lencioni refers to in his book, which again had nothing to do with social media and marketing, but I borrow that to say that the human element in pretty much everything we do is so critical.
True. And I like you brought up the brain too. Thinking about the brain, the two sides of that, the creative side and that logical, or think automation side, you need both, right? So just like our brains need both sides, we need both sides in marketing.
Absolutely, not even a question.
Yeah.
And I see it with email marketing. I see it absolutely in social. It's how people learn, how people act, and again, not just the tools alone. We need to make sure that people understand how they're using them and know their audience too. Be in touch with their audience.
So fix this problem for us. Where do you start? Is there a magic word that just kind of?
No, you really are re-engineering here, which is great. Which is great. How do we start? I think you need a variety of people on your team, and I think it's a science and it's a psychology.
What kind of people? What kind of people do you need on team?
You need young and old alike. You
Okay.
need you need good account people. Those are more the business type people, and you need good creative people, good strategy people, planning people. So it's a variety, an array of people, and the leader who has to be almost a project manager if he or she doesn't have project managers in place to keep things on schedule. So
Right.
again, I'm trying to simplify it, to answer your question. It's not that easy. Otherwise, there'd be a lot of companies not going out of business,
Right.
like there are companies going out of business left and right every day.
What about, when we think about social, because obviously, no, your social game is legit. People just need to follow you. We put this at the end, but what is your LinkedIn? Just tell people like where to go because people just need to punch this in their computers now and just start following you to see this game. So just type in your name in LinkedIn. Is that the best
Yeah,
place?
absolutely. LinkedIn.com, Bob Cargill,
Yep.
and
Cargill.
BOBCARGILL, and I'm on Instagram, and I have a new blog. It's my old blog that's being reskinned, redesigned,
Okay.
now under the URL thebobcargill.com.
Could you share with people what you do on there? Because I see videos, I see you walking, and I see subtitles flying in there of what you're saying. Even if I don't click on the video, I'm seeing things happening. You're walking, you're talking, you're being a thought leader on that platform, on many other platforms. Do you have an approach that you take for that? You just start winging it one day, or what do you do in your mind to sort of get in that zone?
I try to do it, Casey, great question. I try to do it as though I don't have an approach, if you will.
Huh.
Remember, I'm that right brain guy.
Yeah, yeah.
But it is in my brain, meaning I don't over plan. I
Okay.
don't over uh, obsess over my process, but I do have a process. So yes, I do a lot of videos. I have several hundred videos on YouTube, and I put them there first, archive them, and then distribute them all across social. But I write my mini scripts, if you will. They could be 1 or 2 pages in length, and I just read it over in my head a few times, and then I go find a very cool, usually outdoor setting, if you will.
Yep.
But I sometimes do them right here in my home office. And most of them, I'd say 90% of them, I am doing without looking at my script. I will admit occasionally and not often I've had, say, my wife filming me and she'll hold the script so that I can refer to it. But most of them are all in my head. So it sounds and it really is extemporaneous, but based on a thought. And the thought usually ties back to a story too. So I try to start all my short videos with a story and then tie it into a lesson or a strong opinion I have about marketing or social media. Although on the side, I also do a lot of motivational videos.
Got it. You know, one of the things I just got from that just now was you start with a thought, you have a story that comes with that, and then you end with a lesson from the whole experience. And so you're writing out a mini script in advance, so you have a sense of the words. Are you going through it a couple times before you then do it live?
Yeah, I don't do any rehearsal really, no.
No, no.
But there might be
You write out
multiple
the script.
takes.
Yeah.
So literally, I always have 2 or 3 scripts. So exactly how I do it, I use I think it's Keep, the app.
Hmm.
I have a Pixel 2 phone. I think it's a Google app, Keep, and I dictate it into my phone when I have the thought. And literally, I could be running, I could be in the car at a stop sign, red lights. Stop sign wouldn't be long enough to
Driving
do.
on the highway, 8 miles an hour, just going.
No, no. Although I won't say I haven't tried that, but I've tried it. It doesn't work. um, no, so I dictate it and then I print it out, and then I do go over it a few times. But I can literally do this in a day. Meaning, I could have this morning written one out and could have plans. I don't, to do one of these at 4:30 today. Do you know what I mean? And I do this a couple times a week. Those
Got it.
videos I then usually turn into podcasts as well. And
Right.
then you mentioned you've seen my blog. I put them up on the blog. I repurpose them. And I will often use, if I have nice lines that I think are good takeaways, I'll create graphics out of them. So I'll put a little
Ah,
quote. I might put my headshot in that quote. And again, repurpose it on LinkedIn, uh, Instagram, Twitter, you name it. Repurposing content, that's content marketing. So yeah, content marketing is different than social media, but using social media,
it all ties
create,
together.
yeah, it all, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a big integrated mashup, if you will.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, so
Is
that's
that
how
what Cargill Creative does? You do this for other people,
I
or?
do.
Yeah.
So about 2 years ago, I left my full-time job. I had been director of social media at a great agency in Allston, Massachusetts. I
You're
left
like, peace, and you're like bounced out, or?
kind of sort of, yeah. I
Okay,
mean,
nice.
I left to do my own thing, to contract, to freelance, and to I will say resurrect Cargill Creative. So Cargill Creative I had back in the 90s. Remember, we go way back. So 90 to 97, I had Cargill Creative, and that's when all I did was direct mail. I mean, that was pretty much pre-internet. So Cargill Creative's kind of been my side gig all along, in between jobs or moonlighting. And like I said, 2 years ago or so, I said I'm going to give it a shot again. So yes, do what I do on my own is pretty much parallel to what I do for clients. And I try to
Cool.
practice what I preach. And I try, if it's something I haven't done before, there's a lot that I've done for a million years, like
Sure.
copywriting and direct mail and email. But this experimental kind of thing, like video or live video, that
Yeah.
sometimes can be very experimental, or podcasting, I do it on my own first. And then, yeah, ideally a client,
Cool.
prospective client sees it and they say, hey, can you do that for us, Bob?
Yeah. I mean, I was watching your stuff. I was instantly thinking that, like, wow, this isn't like kind of good. This is really good.
Really kind of you to say.
I don't want to keep complimenting because it sounds like an infomercial, but I was just really impressed. And yeah, so here's a question for you then. Let's say you have someone who's new to social, at least in a business setting. Let's say, for instance, they've never used Twitter before, right? Maybe they've used
Mhm.
Instagram, and you're like, hey, go get Twitter because business and connections. Would you have, like, say, top 3 things you'd recommend, when they're thinking about getting into their kind of their B2B networking social?
Yes.
What do you recommend?
So fantastic question. And I do get hired to do this, what you're
Yeah.
asking, meaning I've,
Okay.
since being on my own the last couple of years, and this is what I did when I worked at agencies. I helped with planning, I helped with strategy. So here I am talking about video and the creative right
Yeah.
side of what I do. But I also do take a step back and do obviously connect left with right brain. And I do have a left side of my brain as
It's
well.
there. I see it.
Like you, just maybe not as heavy on the left as you. I'm more heavy on the right. But anyways, I combine both sides of the brain to create a strategy and a plan.
Sure.
because I'm not going to say everyone should jump on Twitter or everyone should be doing YouTube videos. We need to look at where
Right.
their audience is and do a competitive analysis and how is their competition using social. And then I recommend what I usually do get hired to do is exactly what you said. Should I be on Twitter, Bob? Or is Instagram where I should be, or Facebook, et cetera? And maybe it's a combination of all of the above. So competitive analysis, audience research, and then, if you will, dabble on some of these different social media channels to see where things stick, to see where there's
Yeah.
engagement.
Some lightweight tests, right? That way you're not betting the farm on one channel or another, but you're testing out different ones.
Test and learn.
Yeah.
And it's an iterative process, and that could include, so yeah, I often have to teach how to use these tools. Sometimes I do that for them, meaning I can be the virtual assistant, if you will, behind the scenes, actually being their quote face, doing the tweeting, even helping with the videos, usually the guy behind the camera,
Yeah.
not in front of the camera for them, although I could do that for them. So it's where, fish where the fish are. And so I help them find out where the fish are, then teach them to use those tools. So there's your technology,
Right.
and I'm the human element, and they're the human element. So they have to
Right.
make sure they have people in place and that they have the time to make the commitment to use these tools appropriately.
So speaking of appropriately, then let's say that person's brand new to Twitter. You've done the audience analysis. It's the right place to be. Best practices. If you had like top three, things to either do or don't do on Twitter, what's your take?
Sure. Number one, and I wasn't prepared for this question. So
That's right.
I could answer this differently on different occasions, but I
No
would
worries.
say, off the top of my head, don't be too promotional, or don't even be promotional at all.
Got it.
Be personable, not promotional, most of the time. So I'm not saying you don't want to. The bottom line is we all are selling something. We all
Right.
want leads. We all want customers. In business, you wouldn't be on social media otherwise. You're not there just
Yep.
to chat and have fun. But ironically, chatting and having fun does lead to relationships. Relationships lead to sales. So I would say a very small percentage, 20-30% of your content should be promotional. The other percent should be educational, informative, entertaining even. So
Right.
number one rule, be personable, not promotional.
Love that.
You asked for three, I can give you
Yeah.
three. Listen and learn. So again, I talked to you about the competitive analysis. You want to go out there, see what your competitors are doing, see where your customers are, and start just watching what they're talking about.
Yes.
And then you jump into the conversation, and you need to be prepared for them to all of a sudden engage with you. And how do you respond? Are you prepared to respond in a timely fashion? Are you
Right.
prepared to do you know how to operate on these channels? And that's where a lot of the teaching that I do comes into play, so that they eventually can handle this on their own, because social's unlike pretty much any other marketing medium in that it can be real time, it can be 24/7, it can be weekends, it can be nights. So they
Totally.
have to be prepared for that.
You're right. It's not just a business hours type activity.
Not at all, Casey. When I have written many hundreds of blog posts. One of the earliest blog posts I wrote back in the day was just what you said, or something to that effect, that there's no rest for the weary on social. That
Right.
it adds hours to your day, and you have to be prepared for that. And I literally have had clients where some of the bulk of the engagement comes at night or on the weekends. So
Interesting.
yeah, and it can be, it's not for everybody, social. I mean, and that's why, frankly, a lot of companies don't do it or can't do it well, because
Yeah.
they it's hard for them to operate without having control. And on social, you have to be a little bit comfortable with not having control, with being more conversational.
Right. A little more vulnerable, right? I mean, I even hear vulnerability doesn't mean weak. It actually means strong because you're able to put yourself out there.
Like you, Casey. I mean, I'm very serious when no, you're yourself, and you put yourself out there, and you're
Totally.
a perfect example. I mean, of someone that gets social. You're personable. You're who you are. You're
Sure.
casual. You're informal, and you're a great businessman. And that's what it takes. It takes someone who's willing, again, to put the face on the brand. And
Right.
not all businesses are.
True. But people want to buy from people they like,
There you
So
go. Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
absolutely, man. Absolutely. He rode his horse to school and we read books along the way. See, now there's texting and driving, but
I
it
like that
probably
one.
just as dangerous, right? Your horse is like, oh look, it's a mare over there. Let me go over there and check out. Whoa, back over here. Let's go. Yeah. But by the way, thank you. That compliment.
Oh,
I was kind of
absolutely.
adopting you as my social media spirit animal just now as you're describing some of the things that approaches to this. So I got be personable, not promotional, most of the time. Listen and learn. If I had to poke the bear and look for a third thing you recommend doing or not doing, on social, any ideas what you
Yeah.
recommend people?
Um, Visual content. So
Ah,
I'm a writer, and it's hard for me to, or let's say it was when I first totally adopted this stance. But visual content is probably more important than the written content that you put
interesting.
out there. And a lot of people don't get that either, and aren't capable. But the pictures you share,
Hmm.
and now obviously the video, which is one reason I do all this video, and
Right.
it's the big, it's way, so visual content would be that answer in a nutshell. But it's why so many people are into video, why videos on every top 10 list or top 3 list of what's hot
Yep.
in social. But again, there's so many um, the where people will gain the greatest traction in social is ironically where they have the biggest fear, because video, a lot of people think they can write. It's easy to quote, hide behind words, and I don't mean in a bad way, but for better or worse, hide behind words. Pictures, that's the next step. Oh, my
Mhm.
picture is out there online.
That's right.
Video, good luck, meaning tell you how many executives, how many people are afraid to do what you and I are
Oh
doing.
yeah, because you can mess up.
Probably better than I do, meaning getting guests on your show. A lot of people are afraid to, get put up there on YouTube for till perpetuity. So,
Yeah.
but that's where they're going to gain the most traction.
So true. Yeah, so true. How did you make that conversion? You're a writer, and not only do you have videos, but your videos have these like bouncy subtitles telling people what's being said. Your videos are really good. So how did you go from being the writer, the word focused person? I mean, somehow you must have discovered that the visuals were playing, we're getting that much more attention. And then, was it tough to make that transition to start doing more of that, or
You're
tell me about
asking fantastic questions, Casey.
it? Cool.
No, seriously, you really are steering this
Oh,
conversation in a
yeah.
great way. I appreciate the question.
Sure.
Because in why it's extremely insightful, and I don't know how much you know about my background going way back, but I wanted to go into broadcasting before
Okay.
marketing, and I got a master's degree in television, believe it or not. And I doubt there's that many of programs that
Wow.
like the one I took at Brooklyn College way back.
Now, did you do that because you thought I could go to college and watch TV all day? Was that kind
I've heard that joke before.
but
No fair. No fair. That would have been nice if I could have made a
yeah,
living just watching TV.
drinking
Um,
beers, watching TV.
yeah,
You'd
what could
agree.
be better? No, I wanted to be the guy making TV,
Got it.
and or on the radio.
Yeah.
And that's where I thought I was going, but I had the writing chops. I had done so much freelance writing for newspapers, and so I got my first job as a copywriter at RCA Direct Marketing, and the rest is history. But so here's I'm going to tie the bow on your question.
Yeah.
I absolutely believe why I love social media and gravitated towards it so naturally is it's tying together my interest in multimedia. videos, pictures. I also, love photography. I had, 35 millimeter camera way back in the day, learned to use a darkroom. So I love combining my natural, if you will, talent for writing, and I believe totally in the written word and that kind of communication with visual content
Right.
and multimedia. And now everybody can be a broadcaster. And frankly, that's what I'm trying to do. That's what you do with your podcast.
True.
And that's what I'm telling clients, hello clients, because and companies and brands, if you don't be a broadcaster in this day and age, you're going to be left behind. And to me, that's social media, broadcasting. It's, everybody should have a podcast. Every brand, everyone serious about business should have a podcast, some videos, social media presence, and then talk to you seriously, Casey, for all that other stuff where the rubber meets the road. I totally understand, the marketing automation, the email marketing, conversions to sales.
We got to get people's attention, right? We're not doing that with cold calls anymore. We're doing it with thought leadership, and your videos and your, the blog posts, that's how you get the initial attention. And then, marketing automation is great for then capturing those people to nurture them. But you're right. You got to originally get them, and it's not through buying the list anymore. So it's
I'm top of the funnel. I'm up here, top of the funnel.
You own the top of the funnel. Absolutely.
I'm waving to them, bringing them into the tent.
Yep.
It's what, I believe, great communications has to do first.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to, especially in this day and age. I mean, it's insane how much, competition there is for eyeballs and share a voice and all of that. I mean, we have to compete daily and multiple times a day. It has to be quality content, but we need to be very frequent in what we put out there. And I try to tell brands and businesses that sure, now you're on Twitter, now you're on social media. It's not just once a week. It's not just a video once every few months. No, man, it's an extension of your daily business conduct.
Really? So is it like a daily practice these days?
I believe very much so.
Wow.
For me, it is, and that's what I tell clients.
I believe you.
Absolutely. So also what I do, I do this planning and strategy, and I help a client with their workflow. And I have a little diagram, flow chart that I customize for a client. And it's basically their homework. This is what you and or your team, because a lot of these executives who hire me will say, oh, I don't have that time. Well, then somebody on your team has to have that time.
Has to have that time.
And it's jumping on Twitter, it's jumping on LinkedIn, it's putting some pictures up on Instagram, it's using the right hashtags, it's that listening and learning. So yes, it's a daily thing.
Interesting, because I know we were trying to get away with the weekly thing for a while, like because you were talking to people who weren't doing any. So you were saying,
I know, right?
You're not doing any, so get weekly, because people were trying to do go to the gym, for 24 hours instead of once a day for several days. They're trying to just be there's some things you can't binge. You can't binge learn calculus the night before the final your freshman year. That doesn't work. I don't know who's tried that, but I can guarantee that doesn't work. It also doesn't work to try to go to the gym for 24 hours to make up for, say, Thanksgiving, right? It needs to be consistent. You're talking about frequency and consistency and, blogging, the social game, thought leadership. I'm hearing from you that weekly game is now, to really be competitive, and be top of mind for people, it's got to be more frequent.
I hate to tell you, it's exactly how you just described it. And I am a firm believer in that. And if you look at some of the most successful brands or professionals, they are omnipresent and they're daily and frequently on a daily basis. And our commander-in-chief, if you will, is an example. I don't necessarily like what he says.
Yeah, politics aside, right?
Politics aside, he knows how to use Twitter.
Yeah.
And we, whether we like what he says or not, and I don't, I'll betray my politics. I don't like what he says, but I like the fact that he's using Twitter. And geez, if a 72-year-old man,
can figure it out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
anybody can. So don't say social media is just a millennial thing either. It's not just for digital natives. This is the connected, we're all connected now. We all have, these guys in our hands at our disposal, walk down any main street or
Mhm.
anywhere. And all you're going to see is everybody looking at their phones.
For better or worse.
Yeah,
But
but I'm not saying it's
that's
a
a good.
good thing, but it is
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah. I mean, pick up Thor's hammer again if you still have it. I mean,
Boom.
smash that. I mean, you're right. It's not just this millennial game, or I mean, it depends on how old you feel too. I mean, I feel like 19. Sometimes I feel 13. But
You and I think, are in the stuck at the same age.
yeah, you're right. If the president can figure it out, if other, even if the senators who were asking, Facebook questions that were ridiculous can figure it out, then everyone else can too.
Politicians are, I tell my clients, perfect to monitor and watch and use as examples, because frankly, and again, a lot of them aren't not necessarily they're not at all millennials. Not many of them are at all. A lot of them are, a lot of our leaders are in their 60s,
Senator,
70s.
yes,
And yet they're using social media, and that's how they're communicating.
yeah,
So it's either them or their staff. They got smart staff, but communication's so key to getting elected. So isn't that very similar to branding and businesses and sales? A vote is a sale.
right.
You know what I mean? So watch how they do it. Watch the 2020 elections and watch it's going to be a circus, but it's also going to be a learning experience. There'll be movies and documentaries and books, just like there has been already written about Trump, how he's
It's gonna be crazy.
It's gonna be insane.
Oh man, movie. It'll be.
And I will love every minute of it.
Will you? Are you kind of a politics guy? Man, I try to run away from that stuff.
No, I am actually, but again, I also like it for the debates,
sure,
the social media part of it,
kind of pick it apart and understand what's happening. Yeah, I like that kind of stuff too.
I mean, that's an example of putting a face on your brand, and people do vote. I hate to say it, and I wish it wasn't this case, but they vote based on personality and communications, not necessarily. They're not down in the weeds necessarily understanding the whole platform. That's how it is for businesses and brands. They often will buy based on personality, likability, availability. I have something called the 3 A's. It's a story, if you don't mind, if I digress.
Yeah, 3 A's.
3 A's. So it's something I hadn't heard of till it's about 15 years ago. I was watching my son's Little League game. It is a story I've told before, but real short. Watching my
Not on this show, you haven't.
No, I haven't, exactly. Watching my son's Little League game, me and a neighbor, our kids are playing, and he's a pediatrician. And he's telling me about his job, and he says, "Oh yeah, it's the 3 A's. I hope I remember the 3 A's. It's affability, availability. Oh, I'm forgetting. And affability, availability. What's the other one?
3 A's.
Already maybe
Googleable.
But the idea of being available all the time.
I found it. 3 A's of medicine.
Yeah. Thank you. Saved me.
No, availability, affability, and ability.
There you go. Thank you. You bailed me out. So ability, obviously you have to know what you're doing. This is what he told me about how he does his job. Obviously we have to know what we're doing. But then we have to be affable, meaning have a great personality.
Yep.
And then we have to be available. That's perfect for social media. The 3 A's of social media: ability, affability, availability. And that's politicians. It's 24/7 thing. Wonder, where they get all that energy. That needs to be businesses and brands nowadays. That needs to be thought leaders. That needs to be salespeople. It's not 9 to 5 anymore. And that's why retail. I know I'm going.
No, I love it.
This is why retail is struggling. This is why retail is failing. And
how so?
Stores close when people most want to shop. Do you know what I mean? We're all working during the day.
Oh, you're right.
And now a lot of us are working into the evening.
Well, closes at 8:30 or 9.
I mean, I'm generalizing, but they're not always open. Or when you need help, they're not always. I mean, again, I could tell you stories. Think about it. You go to the store and they don't have the product you wanted to buy.
You spent all that time to drive there.
Or they don't know about the product.
Right.
It's on their own shelf. So I just covered the ability, the availability, or the customer service sucks. So they're not, friendly. They're not affable.
Like
So
Walmart, right? Great prices, great availability.
why are people
But
going online? They don't have to
yeah,
deal with the human element. So there's none of the affability comes into play.
right.
Products are almost always available. And there's plenty of information about the products. Plus it's fast. This should be a fourth day for
Fastability.
fastability, but it's good being with an A. I'm trying to think of a
Oh,
word that means speed, but
speedy
then it
starts
could
with
be
an
the
A.
four rays. Yeah, you're good at looking things up, but we don't have to do that now. But yeah, obviously, so the three A's is critical in
Yeah.
business. And if you don't have that in this day and age, forget about it.
Yeah, forget about it. Just so you at this little league game and the doctor. That's cool. I got to go to
Pediatrician.
little league games because I'd love to learn stuff like that at a little league game. But
So
you just
I,
saying this stuff, and your mind went right to like business and social.
it's funny you looked it up. So he probably had borrowed it from somebody else
Yeah,
because he didn't invent it, and neither did I. But I have
right.
paraphrased that.
Sure.
Next time I have to rehearse that so I don't forget the third A. I think that was the ability. But the ability is what
Yeah.
we all got to have, no matter what we do.
Right.
Frankly, you're dealing with a lot of people who know what they're doing. A lot of brands, a lot of businesses, a lot of thought leaders. We're all on the same page. So
Right.
where we can separate ourselves, Casey, from the competition, we all have the same ability, is that affability and that availability.
Mhm.
Look at Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
He's everywhere. So that's your
Yes.
availability. And his personality is over the top. That's your
So over the top.
affability.
Yeah, he's got
So,
those knit hats on. He's in the cab going, "Hey guys, I'm in the cab. I'm at
yes,
JFK. Let me spend the next 5 minutes telling you something that's gonna blow your mind." People are like, "What?" It's
that's how you
great.
separate yourself from
Yeah.
the competition.
So
Perfect
good.
example. Perfect.
Yeah. And so he's got all three then, and he's very available because to your point, it's a daily practice. Put it in your daily routine.
Yeah.
He's in the cab. He had a few minutes, and he's sharing with his flock, and he's sharing with people what he's up to, what's on his mind, right? The thoughts he's having in a cab. So not even prepared. You don't need a backdrop.
Casey, you know what he says? He says document, don't create. So what he's telling people, and this is where businesses struggle, executives, I can't tell you how many of them say, I don't have time to do this. Well, I can't say I invented this expression. I don't know if he did, but this is where I learned it. He says document, don't create. You don't even have to sit back and do what I do, create that little script before doing the video. Just
Right.
do the damn video. Just do
Yeah.
it in the moment. Because
Yeah.
people nowadays, they just want to see you and know that you're there. And your point earlier about being vulnerable,
Right.
being transparent, being trustworthy. Generally, we all are good at what we do. We all have something good to offer. We
Right.
wouldn't be in business if we didn't. Again, where we separate from the competition is the availability and the affability, a la Gary V.
Huh. Huh.
I have no idea how we get to that as a
No,
conclusion.
it's all good. This is what I was going to say. This is what I like to listen to in terms of podcasts. When I think of the highly edited news, I don't even watch the news anymore, but the highly edited news where it's so fake. And then, I like watching news bloopers on YouTube just because it shows you the real person
Yep.
behind the scenes. But I think almost nowadays, you're talking about being connected in the human side. People want to see humans on the other side. And to your point, document, not create. Maybe that just means, first of all, it gives you permission not to be all polished. And then second of all, it says just be real, be real. And I think our communication, whether you remember the third A or not, but now we're all going to remember the third A because we talked about it, and we could edit, we could polish and all that. But I think this is way more interesting is to hearing that discovery and the conversation is way more interesting to listen to.
So what you just said, yeah, you absolutely got to the crux of this discussion, at least the last few minutes, is the human side, the vulnerability, the
Right.
flaw, the imperfection. That's where, again, ironically, we shine. That's where we stand out. So what you said about TV news, the 6 o'clock or whatever they call it, network news. I mean, I have all the respect in the world for the people who do that, and I occasionally watch that, but it's contrived. Obviously, they're reading the script.
Described. It's a good
They
one.
look perfect. They sound perfect. Everything's perfect. God forbid they make a mistake. Earth shattering if they make a mistake. Versus, again, what you and I are doing right now. It's
Yeah.
unrehearsed. It's unscripted. It's live.
My guest today is Bob Cargill. Bob, tell us how it is.
People appreciate
Yeah.
in the moment, and they trust in the moment. And basically all that other stuff is acting, and
Right.
that's good for something, but are you going to buy from an actor? Think
Yeah.
about it. They're acting, they're not real.
That's a
Wouldn't you
great
rather?
point.
Now we're back to social media influences, and why influencers are so
Right.
popular, because these are real people
Mm-hmm.
who you might even know personally. I'd rather buy from a real person, someone I know uses the product, versus a friggin' actor making $1 million just because he lends his voice. I can't
Right.
stand those, big box stores who, have a voice where you recognize, and it's a movie star. And I'm saying, really? This guy is now the voice for, this big freaking chain, and he's trying to tell me to go shop at that store.
Right.
Like,
What was that car commercial with Matthew
uh,
McConaughey, right?
yes, they're great
Driving.
ads, but
What is it? I don't even remember what kind of car it is, though.
is it? I think it's Cadillac, actually.
Cadillac. I drive a Cadillac because what else would I drive? That was
Like,
a bad impression. I wasn't even trying to be an impression, but yeah, you're right. It's
I
like
think
you want it from a real person, and that I think it almost lends the credibility that if their review of a book or a product or something indicates some of the cons, then you believe the pros that much more than if they're just all flowery, all about this is the best thing since sliced bread.
back to personable, not promotional, meaning
Yeah.
people more and more these days, and a lot of it is the younger people. It's the savvy consumers, the informed consumers. We know better, and so we're not going to fall for the bullshit. We're not going to fall for the contrivance that previous generations did through no fault of their own. They didn't have the internet. I mean,
Right.
frankly, it's coming back to the internet too. It's that we can look up anything, anytime, and find reviews and find real people talking about something that we want to buy. And there's a book I always often talk about in my presentations called the Clue Train Manifesto, and it came out in 1999, 2000, and it was all about the internet, and it was before businesses and brands were using the internet for e-tail and what have you. And it said people are talking about your businesses, whether you know it or not. And they're now talking about your businesses on the internet and on social media, which was soon to come, thanks to Mark Zuckerberg and the rest. And you better join that conversation. And ideally, you're even leading that conversation. They said that, the authors of this book, in 99, 2000, the Clue Train Manifesto. And the whole thing was that the train is leaving. And if you don't get on the train, you won't have a clue. Do you know what I mean? You'll be left behind.
True.
And again, that's what to this day is still happening to people and businesses. They either don't believe in social and digital in technology, or they're Luddites. They just they're afraid of it and they don't believe in it, and they're going to lose.
Reminds me of Blockbuster Video, and that was everywhere. And then I don't know if you've heard the story, but I'm not going to tell it perfect justice, but they had a chance to buy Netflix for like a couple million, like pennies to them, the cost of a couple of their stores. And they were like, nah. It's almost like turning down Harry Potter. It comes to your publisher and you're like, nah.
That's pretty amazing. I did not know that. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, they had a chance to.
Real quick digression. I won a Netflix prize once to a radio station, where this is very much a digression, but where my wife and I and our kids, when they were young, we got a free trip to Martha's Vineyard for one night. And it was a Netflix sponsored thing. And whoever the CEO, I don't know if he's still the CEO, he's pretty famous. I mean, we were literally right there on the beach for a lobster dinner. It was a Jaws themed night, and we watched Jaws outdoors. It was some anniversary of the movie Jaws. but whoever that CEO is, he was like, within feet of me, and we got to see him, and one of the 60 Minutes correspondents was there too, to interview him. It was pretty fascinating. Anyways,
Wow.
that has nothing to do with. It's
That's
just
cool though. I actually I'm a big fan of Martha's Vineyard myself. And you're right, that's where they filmed Jaws.
yes, and we used to go to the vineyard all the time, and they did film Jaws there. My cousin, who is no longer with us, may he rest in peace, was in that movie. Right near the beginning, there was a parade marching up Main Street in Eggatown, and he was a drummer and was in that movie for about 5 seconds. That was my
Wow.
cousin, Scotty Ewing.
Wow. It was in the actual movie.
He was in Jaws.
No kidding. No kidding. Well, you've got this really cool past. My question to you is like, who are you? Where did you come from? How did you become this marketing copywriting sage converted into amazing social video rock star? Like take us back to, the little Bob days.
That's probably the hardest question. And by the way, while you asked me that question, Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
he's the famous guy I was just
We got
talking
fact checkers, people. That's what we got. Fact checkers.
So terrific question.
Who are you, man?
If you don't mind, I feel very self-indulgent here.
Do it. No, this is all about you now. This is therapy. Here, lay down on the couch. Tell me about the old days.
I loved writing as a kid, and always was a little creative and a little outgoing. If you haven't been able to tell, I'm very expressive,
Sure.
extroverted, and like to share with a lot of people. And I probably credit my beginning communications, interest in communication, to one of my English teachers who had us keep a journal, which was basically a daily diary. I think that was in high school. And I also wrote for the student newspaper and the yearbook. And then in college at UMass Amherst, I wrote for the Daily Collegian, and loved seeing my articles in print, with my name there, the byline.
Definitely.
And thought that was so thrilling. And again, obviously this is, pre-internet days, but print media and expressing myself and being able to communicate with the masses. And then I told you I went to Brooklyn College grad school to pursue television, and thought either radio or TV would be my thing. I did a little DJing, as an internship at Dean College one summer in Franklin, Massachusetts, where I grew up. I had an internship at WBZ FM, which is the famous WBZ in Boston. They had an FM radio station, and I had an internship there. So it could have been radio, could have been TV. But because of all the freelance writing I had done, I wrote for the college newspaper, my hometown newspaper. I got a job as a copywriter right out of grad school at RCA Direct Marketing. And it was writing about music. It was the record club, 13 records and tapes.
You send in
you got it,
$2 self-addressed stamped envelope, and you get, it wasn't CDs at the beginning, it was like cassettes, right? To start,
we're talking records and tapes, vinyl.
Records, like even
vinyl, man.
OG.
And who else has about 2,000 records in their cellar? Yeah, I got about 2,000 records, vinyl. Not knowing what to do with them, and my wife and I talking about downsizing in a few years, and the big challenge and could be nightmare for me is having to let go of all my records.
Man,
so if anyone out there wants to buy some,
it's interesting because it reminds me when I was a kid, I'd come home early from school, no one else is there. My parents had a stereo with tapes and stuff, but they had their record player on top, and I remember putting in some different songs. And I love just being able to I could turn the speed up. I think one time I turned Jesus Christ Superstar into like the Chipmunks version, and trying sing along. But yeah, there's something cool about a record, that it's that tactile thing. Whereas nowadays, hey, you got it in Spotify, you're good. But still, there's something neat about that physical record.
So literally, it was either today or yesterday. This thought, because I'm serious. We are thinking of moving in the next few years, and I'm trying to decide what to do with all my records and books. I got tons of books, and I thought what someone like me might do is take a picture of if I'm going to get rid of them, of every one of them, and digitally archive them. I'll do something on social media with all my records if I have to get rid of them, because I don't want to ever lose the sense of still owning them, because they all have memories and personal stories. But you mentioned, we were talking about the record club, what
Yep.
that is called. So I'm going back, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
It's
Good.
called Negative Option Club. So again, I talked about marketers who have been there, done that, and why I think they're extremely valuable in today's day and age. You get technology, you get social, but then you get somebody like me and many of my colleagues who are still around, who were doing their thing back in the day.
Yep.
We learned things like this. Negative Option Club was how book clubs and record clubs worked. You would get the record, or if it was a book club, the book every month, unless you returned the postcard that said, I do not want that. So you would sign up to get 13 records. I'm making this up. It was something like this, 13 records for a penny.
Right.
The commitment being you're going to get a record every month unless you send in and say no. The Negative Option Club. And what they counted on, and there's probably some of this still going on in marketing, they counted on either you forgetting or just being apathetic and taking it. And the consumer got a big deal up front.
Which is like two of those are both me, right? Both of those options.
It's consumers in general. It's people in general, right? Human nature. So they counted on that. And again, is the negative? I don't know if the negative option is still around. I think it might be. Are there, the gift box things? I don't know how those work. Where you get the boxes each month of things. Those might be similar.
That's true. That's probably the same.
I do know if they're similar, but it's getting. So think of the psychology there in marketing, giving the customer a big freaking bonus up front, which we all love, but then the company gets it all back and then some down the road, by charging retail or even a premium for subsequent deliveries. That was the negative option, and I learned that. And so it's marketing tactics and strategies that how can you integrate into your program now. People who I work with, they're in their 20s and 30s. They have no idea what I'm talking about, and I'm saying, oh well, maybe this strategy will work with some other strategy that just came into play 5 years ago. Right.
Interesting. So that kind of exposed you to a lot of different things, at that RCA.
Well, did you mention them? I know in an earlier conversation, might have been offline, we were talking about Mad Men. And so it wasn't quite the 60s. I'm not that old, but this was the early 80s. Bright Lights, Big City. If you ever saw that movie or read that book, Matthew J. Fox was in the movie.
Oh, cool.
In the 80s in New York, real exciting times. But my bosses at RCA were right out of Mad Men, which was based on 60s advertising. Yep. I had 3 mentors. I can't remember if all of them I at one time reported to officially, but at least 1 or 2 of them. I know one of them I did, but they were the 3 senior guys, if you will, at RCA. I learned so much from these guys. They were right out of the show Mad Men, if you will, out of casting.
You still have the thin ties on, or did they adjust to the latest style?
It might have been thin ties. That I can't remember, but I can tell you this was the day that we all wore ties to work. And, I mean, for the first 10, 15 years of my career, I always wore a tie and sometimes sport coat or suit. But they were brought up in the golden, days of advertising. So I learned from some of the best early on. They were creative directors and copywriters, right out of the David Ogilvy School of Advertising, right out of Mad Men casting center.
What kind of things did you learn? I mean, I don't know if you're able to articulate it, but I'm sure being around people like that you just sort of, maybe we're not even realizing it. You're just sort of picking up on their strategies and how they approach things.
Well, you did ask, earlier, how did the me of today come about? I mean, these guys infused me with, how to think creatively, strategically, how to do things over and over until you get it right.
Okay.
So that this is back in the days, I don't have to fortunately go through this too often nowadays, but where I would be rewriting, did I lose you, Casey?
Oh, I'm here.
Okay. I got you. This was back in the day when I would have to go over and over things, and rewrite and red pencil days where, they were serious editors. So,
this is horrible. XX Try again.
Yeah. So I learned, conceptualizing, I learned strategy, I learned tactics. I learned how to work with designers.
Wow.
It was all the basics, all the fundamentals. I went to seminars, I went to conferences. I had to read books. This is back in the day when your boss or the company would actually buy you some textbooks, and
Interesting.
and they'd actually take the time to teach you
Mm.
that which you were doing on the job.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was heady days, and at RCA, I wrote for the catalog. I wrote direct mail. Like I say, worked with designers, and everything we did was measured. So this is
Mm.
direct response advertising, direct marketing, where it wasn't just advertising and having a concept, something creative and something catchy. It was measured. We got response rates,
Wow.
we got orders, we got leads, and you could have the best idea going, but if it didn't perform, it was a fail. So I learned at an early age in my career, the importance of testing and
Right.
iterations and working things over and over until they performed, exceptionally well.
I love that. And I think more marketers could use some of that. And I think, I remember when I first started out in the marketing side, I had some accountability, but there are some positions out there where they're expecting marketing just to be a print shop, right? Hey, make the collateral for me, or you do that weird stuff where you spend money, and then sales does all the important stuff. But to be in a place where even in marketing, you're held accountable like a sales rep. Did your content work or not? We A/B tested. Did it improve our results or not? And I like that you mentioned. Politics is one thing, but if the idea doesn't work, it's out. Let's test. We're measuring
Hmm.
here. This is direct response. Let's make sure it actually has some results. That's really cool. Yeah, that you were able to be in that environment early probably helped make that status quo for you. That's normal. Like, so if you get around people who aren't being held accountable, you're like, this is weird.
It's not easy for me, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So in my head, I'm constantly having to battle with, okay, been there, done that, know how this should be done, but I'm in an environment or dealing with people who either have no clue or just insist on doing it this way. So
Right.
it often, frankly, isn't easy, being a veteran in the business, because yeah, you feel in many cases you know how it should be done, and believe that you could do it better, but sometimes, yeah, you do have to conform, and to some degree I always speak up if I think something's not going to work, and try to convince whomever, that I might have a better way. But I also am always open to doing it a different way if it's going to be
Sure.
just successful, or maybe more successful. Can I say something? You made me think,
Yeah.
when I think you mentioned politicians again, or politics, and I was thinking polling. This is why. Well, we talked about testing and learning, and
Yep.
and so I was thinking politicians. They do polls constantly, um,
Mm.
and they do polls in order to see how their constituents are thinking, and then so that's the testing, and then that's why they flip flop. That's why they change their stance occasionally, and that's them testing and learning, polling. So
Right.
businesses and brands, and this is where social can come in. It's not literally polling, but it's always being in touch with what your audience is thinking and saying and doing and feeling. So then you can be right there with them, lockstep, and changing your products and services accordingly, so that you're always going to have great appeal. You need to
Right.
be polling, and I don't necessarily mean that literally, but you need to be right there with your audience, the people whose attention you covet.
Right. Polling your audience like the politicians are doing, whether that's an actual poll or whatever the method or the medium you're using, getting
Yes.
that feedback, continuous feedback from your buyers is so important.
Love this. So,
Yeah.
so what you just said, the word feedback, I don't think we've used that yet in this conversation. That, direct marketing, in which the industry in which I was brought up in, direct marketing is a feedback loop. It's always, so
Mm,
advertising is just putting something out there. Direct marketing is putting something out there and asking for a response, and
right.
that response could be yes or no, or it could be maybe. Maybe I'm interested, and you want the yes, but you learn from that and you adjust accordingly. So that feedback is the feedback loop. And that is embedded in good direct marketing. And I don't think a lot of social media people realize how similar social media is to direct marketing, because you literally do have that constant feedback loop. And you should be conversing with your audience, learning and adjusting course and redirecting
Interesting.
based on what you learn. Yes.
Adjusting your social game. I think I was thinking of it one dimensional where it's like do social right. But to your point, seeing what posts and seeing what gets the engagement, there's nothing wrong. In fact, that's what we do in marketing. We optimize. And so don't just stick to the plan, but ebb and flow and go back and look what posts got the most engagement, which
Yes.
images and videos got the people commenting on them and which ones didn't, and change.
Casey, that is so right on. So if I go back early in my career, it was direct mail and print and then the web and now social. The what all of that has in common is that testing and learning.
Right.
And today we can learn even more. You just mentioned shares, comments. That's sentiment. We can measure sentiment, not just clicks through to our website, not just the yeses and nos, but the maybes. Is it good what they are saying about us? Is it bad what they are saying about us?
Right.
And then we can pick up actual, I've done this for clients. We do screenshots and aggregate exactly what they're saying about our product or service. That's what, again, our president and any senior executive and any brand should be doing daily.
True.
They should be watching. And that's what I'm sure his people do. Watch the reaction. So a lot of people might say, oh, I hate what he said. Yeah. I don't like it. But little do we know, they might be seeing that the majority of people like what he's saying.
Right.
And that's why
he's doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big brands, people who are winning. Again, I'm not saying, politics aside, but
hashtag winning.
Most, yeah, I remember that. Who was that? That was
Tiger Blood. What was that, right?
Yeah, I just can't remember his name.
Sheen?
But yeah.
Charlie Sheen?
There you go. Boom. Yeah. Winning. Well, that's what it's all about in business. And right. Most successful business people, and look, that president was a successful business person, like him or not, they know how to measure their constituents' sentiment, and they know how to change accordingly what they say, what they do. At least they all should, if they want to keep winning, if they want to keep hashtag winning. That's what we can learn from this guy, and that's what we can learn from some of the businesses and brands that are getting it, that are doing it right.
Here's a sentiment story that I hope gets through to the people that made. You remember the recent Super Bowl, right? Go Pats.
Yes,
Everyone turns off the episode. That's okay. You watch the first part. But yeah, go Patriots. Tom Brady, GOAT, greatest of all time. Anyways, so there were commercials and people tune in for those things. I don't know if you remember the Olay commercial. There was an Olay commercial. I don't remember what happened. All I know is it was scary. It was like these scary people in the bedroom and everything. And I have my kids there, right? And a couple of people put this on Facebook too. They're like, freaking Olay, thanks for making it not possible for my kids to even be in the room while watching the Super Bowl.
Oh,
I
man.
had to, I muted it, but other people had to do something else. I'm like, so I tweeted, I'm like, essentially you suck or something, thanks for being please pick up on my sentiment, and hopefully there's enough sentiment.
Yes.
This blows, and they're not just oh, well, people are talking about us. It's talking about you in a negative way, and hopefully you're not just trying to get that. But it was just kind of it ticked me off. So I hope they pick up on this.
That is the benefit of social. So they miscalculated. It sounds like I honestly either didn't see it or can't remember the commercial. But
early on,
you're describing it perfectly. Yes, thanks to social media, versus 15, 20 years ago, at least they can learn from that, hopefully. But what I would
fire
say,
the agency that made that.
Yes, exactly. And see, that's me and my brethren against those advertising agencies making all that money on those Super Bowl commercials when, you were talking millions of dollars, literally, when they should have done a little more homework, maybe on social, and tested these spots. And,
you're right.
Yeah. Or use that money just on social, So was it worth it to them? I don't know. We're talking about the commercial, so I don't know.
Talking about it, but
But are we buying the product?
I guess we're not their buyer. But if I'm a little worried about this, my wife would be freaking out about. I mean, she's not happy with some of the cartoons they have these days, so she would not be happy about that Olay commercial.
No, not good.
But yeah, to your point, maybe that Super Bowl is kind of like trying to get 24 hours in the gym instead of getting it every week.
It really is the opposite of what I'm doing nowadays
Yeah.
with social media and where I think most brands and businesses are going. Sure, Super Bowl commercial. Again, I have no experience at all with being involved with any of that, so I can't tell you how much bang for the buck they get. But I know that most of us in social media think it's foolhardy to be spending that kind of money. But I think the brands that do spend that kind of money just have money to burn.
They have money to spend.
I really do. I mean,
Pepsi, hello.
Yeah.
Cargill Creative and Cheshire Impact are ready to help you out.
Yeah, think how far the money would go with us.
Of a fraction of the percent of what you spent for the Super Bowl.
Think about it.
Call me.
We're available. Hello.
We're affable, we're available, and we have the ability.
The 3 A's.
Absolutely. Well, hey, man, I wanted to give you a chance. Yeah, I heard you just mentioned you had started doing your own podcast, and I've had a blast listening to you. So I'm really interested in hearing what are you talking about on it. Is it just you? I think
it is in most cases.
Monologues, or tell me about
it. I should learn from all my marketing that it needs to be more about my audience. But at the same time, I'm just joking, self-deprecating humor there. It is about my audience in that I'm trying to tell stories and impart wisdom and lessons that I think will benefit my audience. It is mostly, so it's a little different than a lot of podcasts. It's mostly probably on average 2 minutes to 3 minutes.
Wow.
Snippets that are marketing lessons, very similar to the videos I do, which I also turn into blog posts. It's doing remarkably, in my mind, well, thanks to Podbean. Podbean's a great platform. They have very lucky. They've been promoting. I did ask. It was last spring. There was somewhere I saw that you could apply to be promoted, and I did. And
I missed that memo.
No, you gotta look for it.
I will,
Casey, because I'm telling you, they put me. It's frequently I'll see my podcast listed up there with much bigger ones, and I'm building a really nice audience. Over 50 episodes. I do have some interviews, and I want to do more interviews. I've interviewed a few people, 3, 4, 5 different people, 15, 20-minute conversations, nothing like, this over an hour long conversation I'm having with you. This is the direction, like what you're doing, that I want to go with my podcast. If we go, to podcasts in general, great content, something I just started last year. I highly recommend, to all my clients, it's another way of reaching your audience. It shows your vulnerability. It shows your personality. Yeah. So there's your affability, your availability, and your ability. I mean, you really can't fake it, on social media. And the more that you share, the harder it is to fake. So yeah, you're taking a chance, but it's where the rubber meets the road. I mean, that's where you're going to gain, I think, the most business. So yeah,
tweets. You can fake the tweets and the shares, but once you start getting on video, I once heard a presentation from it was one of the Drift conferences, and who was it? It was kind of a controversial presentation, but basically it's a sales trainer, and he was it was Grant. It's a whole nother story to that one, but essentially he had a sales trainer, and he got to this marketing conference, and then the presentation. First of all, it ticked a whole bunch of people off because he got super inappropriate and all these crazy things. But more importantly was what I was listening to. It's almost like someone in the wings had told him, hey, you're talking to marketers today. Talk about your email list, talk about A/B testing, and then talk about like open rates or something. Like they gave him 3 words, and there was this guy who's in a different realm just talking about these 3 words, and like you could tell he didn't quite know what those words maybe meant.
Yeah.
It's like inconceivable. I don't think you know what that really means. So to your point, the more of the media you get, the more vulnerable you are. But then the more people can realize you know what the hell you're talking about or not.
I rather do business, and I think this is in tandem with how the younger generation, which is going to predominate business very soon. I rather do business with someone I know and trust, and that's because I believe there are a number of options and choices I have. Just like when you fly, they always say, "We realize you have a number of choices, so thank you for selecting us to fly today." There's plenty of options. So I'm going to go with the most friendly, the most trustworthy organization, and I think that's how people buy nowadays. I certainly, from my days in the ad business, doing a lot of presentations. I'm not a closer, but I'm a setup guy, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I help companies make the connection and try to impress potential clients, and then the salesperson comes in and makes the deal. We need to be likable. We need to be charismatic,
Right.
and vulnerable, in that they got to get to know us. And I think that's where you separate yourselves from the competition. If you can, again, top of the funnel, let people get to know you better, and save, cut to the chase, save any of the smoke and mirrors.
Say what you mean what you say. Yeah.
Love that. Absolutely.
I didn't make that up. I feel like I learned that in Catholic school or something. I don't know.
That's one of those fundamentals that only seasoned professionals like you and I would know.
Right. Totally. Man, this has been great. So, what's the show called? The podcast?
Oh yes, it's called, very straightforward, Bob Cargill's Marketing Show.
I like it.
Yes, and it's on Podbean, but it's also everywhere where you can listen to podcasts. So where would that be? iTunes, Google Play,
Google,
Spotify. I admit, even when I run, I listen to Spotify often.
Me too.
I'll even listen to my own podcast.
Me too.
It's actually sounds. Yeah.
Not only that, but I find that I learn all over again.
Well, especially because you're interviewing other people.
Sure.
And I can see what you mean. And now I'm going to be listening to your podcast a lot.
Hey,
now that
we've got two listeners, my dad and you. Awesome.
That's funny.
And some other people. But
Yes.
Absolutely. That's really cool. Well, this has been fun. One other thing that I want to ask you about, you're a kind of a runaholic here, and I think you're doing the marathon this year. Is that right?
You got it. Thank you for bringing that up. On April 15th. What is that? Almost exactly two months.
That's coming up.
Yeah. I'll be running Boston, the Boston Marathon. It'll be my 12th time running Boston for charity, my 15th Boston overall. And I'm training. I run almost every day, and on weekends I run usually a double-digit long run, 10 plus to train. This Sunday I'm running two races. This is unusual. It's back-to-back, a 5K, then a 10-mile race. They call it the Badass Combo, and that's in Foxborough.
It's a 5K followed by a
5K, yes, and then like a 20-minute break, and then you run 10 miles. It's pretty insane.
Sounds kind of cool.
It's very cool. We get a nice medal and some swag afterwards, and I'll feel great afterwards. But I'll also be wicked tired. I wouldn't want to be doing an hour and a half long podcast that afternoon.
Right. It'd be different kind of. It'd be a very mellow podcast.
Yeah, it would be entirely different. The energy I'm putting forth today.
So that's so cool. Hey, were you there that crazy year with the bombing and all that?
I was. Sadly,
by the way, I surprised you with that, so I don't even know if you want to.
No, you did, and I'm glad you asked, because that's actually something I remember very well. It's a sad memory, tragic, and
right.
And I to this day pray for the victims and the survivors. It was horrible. But in terms of the emotion I experienced, I did run that year and was stopped a half mile. That was 2013. I was stopped a half mile from the finish line, along with hundreds of other runners, due to the bombings at the finish line. And the BAA, Boston Athletic Association, credited anyone who had finished at least half of the route that day, once the race was stopped, which was at the time of the bombings, with having completed the whole thing.
Wow.
They handled it so well, but
Did they?
yeah, in the face of adversity, it was such a horrible day. I'll never forget it. And on my blog, I actually wrote a big long article with
Did you?
pictures. I even then carried my phone with me
Wow.
and posted on Facebook from where I was. And it's a very sad picture and traumatic for me to look at right now, because I posted a picture where I was with probably 1,000 others. And
Right.
I said, I am okay. You know, I'm here with all these other
Wow.
runners. And that was how, I think my cousin called my wife, and that's how they found out I was okay.
Yeah, because you got to imagine your family's probably just freaking out.
The
You know?
phones weren't working, Casey.
Ah,
It was
geez.
either because of overload or
Yeah.
something. Everyone was trying to use their phones, so people couldn't reach by text or phone. But hey, social media came.
Social media. So you posted
Yeah,
that where on Facebook
I
or?
posted on Facebook, and I have a screenshot. It's on my blog from, it'd
Wow.
be in April 2013 or May 2013. I wrote a long article
Yeah, we'll
documenting
link to that.
how I felt that day. Um, it was amazing. So sad, but
Yeah.
something I'll never forget. And then I ran the next year as well, 2014. I've run it a bunch of years, and can't
Yeah.
wait to run it again this year.
And it hasn't stopped you, man. And that, I mean, that's
No.
the American spirit right there, you know?
Well, now that Boston has become associated, like you say, with the American spirit,
Yeah.
patriotism, nothing will stop us, and we turn something bad into something good, and that motivates us even more to run the thing. And I also run for a charity, Christopher's Haven. They're located in Boston. They provide housing for kids and their families, the kids who are undergoing cancer treatment. So I raise funds for
Wow.
them. Yeah, Christopher's Haven.
Christopher's Haven. Yeah, we'll put a link on the show notes to that too, because
That is awesome.
yeah, that'd
I
be
do
really
have a
cool.
link. Yeah.
So they tell me more about what they do. They raise money, they
Yep.
get kids out of bad
They
situations or
they help the families. So the kids,
families. Oh, good.
the kids have cancer, and they come to Boston for cancer treatment,
Right.
and they come from all over the world because Boston has some of the best hospitals,
True.
and they need a place to stay. Christmas Haven has, I think it's about 8 apartments in Boston, right near Mass General Hospital.
Wow.
Provides these families whose kids are undergoing cancer treatment with housing while the kids go through their radiation or whatever type of treatment they're undergoing. So the money I raise goes to Christmas Haven, which helps them provide this housing to those families.
That's awesome, man. I mean, to do something like that, to run something so crazy and fun. I mean, I've only done a half marathon at this
Well,
point.
then you know the drill, though. I mean,
One day
that's
though,
a
one day
yeah.
I'll high five you as I'm passing you. Hey, buddy, I'll see you at the finish. But
As I get older, I'm getting slower, so you probably will pass
I'll
me.
have to wait a couple decades to but yeah. What a cool thing. So you're doing that, and you get to purpose it with. I mean, that's a rough time for parents when and then you can just provide a place of comfort, a non-hospital-y place.
It is,
They
and
can
I visit there every year
do
a
you
few times to see the kids and the families, and
good.
what you just
Yeah,
said, non-hospitally.
like that word. I made that up.
Yeah, that was hard to repeat. Um, it's funny. You're right on, because it just made me think of their tagline. It's a home away for kids when cancer, home away for kids when cancer strikes home, something like that, when
Right.
cancer hits home. So yeah, they provide that home environment where these families can feel very comfortable and relaxed, while the kids have to go to the hospital every day, and they're worrying, I mean, this is usually some serious cancer, illnesses that cancer related treatments they're going through, and very serious cancer that the kids have. So it's a tough
Absolutely.
time for them. But
I went to the website. And you're right. It's a home for kids when cancer hits home.
there you go.
You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
that's cool,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, that's my
I love
charity.
people
And
that are doing that. Sometimes in marketing, we're doing our thing, helping people sell sprockets, but it's also whenever you can use your magical marketing powers to help someone else out. I mean, that feels right.
Casey, marketing, social media, it giveth and taketh away, and
Right.
it can give, and that's what I try to do on my own, and try to tell clients, cause marketing, have a little part of your budget allocated towards doing something for a nonprofit, doing something for good. And you know what? It comes back to you and then some anyways. So, you know, a lot of these companies might think, oh, I don't have time for that, or geez, we got to make a profit first. And I say, you know, frankly, in the end, you'll be able to sleep better at night, and you'll probably make a bigger profit because you know, people are going to like you more. Hey, we tie it right back full circle. They're going to like you more, and then they're going to be more likely to do business with you. So,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
You know, give a little something, and you're going to get a lot back in return.
That's it, man. Boom. Boom. Have you looked at the clock? It's been like a time warp.
Yeah, what happened?
Fun,
I thought
man.
it was only going to be an hour, man. You know, and I guess you weren't kidding. You actually, I thought it was only going to be an hour, but you joked it might go 8 hours long. Maybe that's what you're trying to see. How long?
This was halfway in between.
Can Bob talk before he loses his voice?
Well, you know, yeah, double header. We got episode 2 coming up right now.
Love that. Well,
but thank you so much for coming on here. I mean, it's been such a good time to listen and learn from you. But you know, even some of myself maybe advanced in social media, to hear that next level, Jedi level social. And I've just been paying attention. And when I see you pop up on LinkedIn with the videos and all this, so it's great to actually pick your brain, you know, one-on-one.
Thank you, Casey. Be aware. Maybe you'll see one of those videos pop up all about you one of these days.
Hey, well, I'm gonna have to work with you, Cargill Creative, right?
Yes, we'll have to do something together, one way or another. This is hopefully the start of many such projects, if you will.
Agreed.
That we work on.
Maybe
together.
I'll join you for the 5K out of the 5 and 10K.
There you go.
I'll be like, hey, I'm gonna go to the bar. Enjoy the next.
Yeah. Well, I'm running that last 10.
Well, this is awesome. Hey, what are some of the links that we need to tell people about?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Cargill Creative. So that's twitter.com, Cargill Creative.
Okay.
I have a Facebook page, a business page, Cargill Creative, as well as Bob Cargill. I would, you know, always welcome new friends. LinkedIn, it's Bob Cargill. Instagram, Bob Cargill. I have a blog. It's thebobcargill.com. So I'm all over. YouTube, Bob Cargill. We'd love to, you know, welcome new visitors, new friends, new subscribers, new followers, and many of you I'll follow back if we have something in common. I'm right there with you. I'm back at you. Quid pro quo.
I love it. I love it, man. This is great. And for everyone listening, you know, if you learned anything, and I know you did because I've got 2 pages of notes here, but share this with someone, right? Get this off your phone and onto someone else's phone, or off your computer onto their computer, so you can get this knowledge into their hands. And if there's someone doing social wrong, definitely share this with them so Bob can straighten them out. Or you know, even the executives or folks at your company that aren't really sure how it plays out, you can see Bob's measured approach, right? Do some research, do some analysis, understand your audience, and then go after them consistently. It's awesome. So definitely get this in their hands. And Bob, last time, I just want to thank you again. Thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you, Casey. I really appreciate it. It's your show, and I'm honored to be featured on your show. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Now the show is that much better that you've been on here. So
love it. Thank you very much.
Thanks again. And everyone else out there listening, thank you for listening. And we will see you all next time.